Has Amazon actually listened to the fans and are prepared to give us what we want? Really? This might be the first time this has ever happened. Welcome to Scitrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. On a live yesterday with MGM insider Jenny Stiven, somebody that's actually worked on several big projects for MGM, we were discussing where we think the Stargate franchise is right now. Now, we are speculating a lot, but we do have some confirmed information that is pointing to a very interesting possibility. And since that conversation with Jenny, I was inspired to get in touch with somebody that I know still works closely with MGM. And they gave us a little bit more confirmation that really starts to make one possibility look very promising. And that possibility is that MGM and Amazon might be about to scrap plans to do a Stargate straight-to-cinema movie and instead go back to the original plan of giving us a straight-to-streaming series instead. So, first of all, what are the confirmed bits of information that we've got? Again, thanks to Jenny Stiven, this was confirmed last night on the live. There will be a link in the description, by the way, so you can go and watch the whole thing. Honestly, Jenny has some amazing insights into the industry. And if you like being able to see behind the curtain a little bit of how the film and TV industry works, it's definitely worth a watch. And we want her back on at some point. So please get in there and check that video out. So we have two bits of really good information. One, just over 2 weeks ago now, there was quite a big meeting over at Amazon at Culver Studios. This meeting basically was called by a couple of the top executives, including Jennifer Salke, to basically thrash out conversations about whether they should do a movie or a TV series. Now, we've reported several times over the last 12 months that there have been quite a lot of arguments between executives at MGM and Amazon about whether they should do a movie, whether they should do a series. As well as that argument, though, there's been quite a bit of debate about whether this is something they should just crack on and get done, or whether they should take their time and actually push down the calendar and actually make sure they get right first time. But we're going to ignore that conversation for the moment. Movie, series. So basically, Jennifer Salke told the people that keep arguing that this should be a series to come in to Culver Studios and present their argument. I have this mental image of some executive there with glasses and going, and this shows projections for the movie, you know, with like a flow chart or a pie chart. I expect lots of charts. At the end of the day, Amazon love metadata, so they're going to have looked and analyzed this. And the way that that data is then interpreted is very important. Somebody at the end of the day has interpreted a lot of this metadata and decided that a movie is the way to go. Now, we've actually had this conversation a couple of times. I actually believe, and this is only my opinion, but I actually believe Jennifer Salke is the person that has basically decided to do a movie simply because the money was already budgeted for it. Amazon had already budgeted to do 5 or 6 cinematic movies a year. So Jennifer Salke just went, let's give one of them to Stargate. And that was as far as really the thought went. But a lot of the data and a lot of the analysis has been done since we, over at Scitrek, pretty much dropped that announcement, wow, nearly a year ago. And the conversations have continued. Now, we know for a fact, and this was again confirmed last night by Jenny Stiven, we know for a fact that Amazon were planning to announce this movie at San Diego Comic-Con 4 months ago. They didn't because of the strikes. We know for a fact that was going to be for a movie, a theatrical, cinematic movie. We know since then they've been talking to a few directors, but we know that none of them have signed on. We know for a fact that all of the studios, while the strikes have been running, have been reviewing and going over all of their projected projects. Everything they were planning to basically do in the next 5 years, they've reviewed. Loads of studios have cancelled loads of projects. Netflix, for example, cancelled the He-Man live-action movie, even though they'd already spent $30 million on development. So all of the studios have gone through this process. So it's not a big leap to assume that Amazon have done exactly the same. In fact, we know they have. Then we know for a fact that the Monday following this presentation, there was another meeting at Amazon. And I know for a fact from one of my sources that Stargate and a decision over Stargate was on that agenda. Now, at the time, we believed that was going to be about when the project was going to be announced. But now, actually speaking to somebody else, I've realized that actually that was an assumption, because the bulk of the day was about when other projects were going to be announced. Things like RoboCop. Stargate apparently was a separate conversation. It just happened to be done on the same day. We don't actually know what they were talking about. We don't know what the decision was they were supposed to be making about Stargate. We've assumed, and they know what you say about assumption. It makes an ass out of you and me. So what if the decision wasn't about whether they should be announcing it now? What if the decision was about whether they should change the plan? They have a meeting just a few days before discussing whether actually a series is the best way to go. And then they have a meeting just a few days later. I don't think that's an unfair assumption for once. And what my other source has told me since the live with Jenny makes that possibility a little bit more likely. But there is one other little bit of information, something I shared with you just over 3-4 weeks ago now as well. The PR and marketing companies over at MGM and Amazon, they were asked to review all of the big sci-fi projects that were going to be announced over the next 12 to 18 months. And this was going to be done through Amazon MGM Pictures Distribution. So everything that Amazon MGM Pictures Distribution Company were going to be planning to be released in the next 18 months. They had to review the strategy for all of that PR and marketing. Stargate was not included. Now, at the time, I said there's two possibilities for that. One is that they've decided to scrap it. They're not just going to do it. And I said that's unlikely. The other possibility is they were about to announce it. Well, now we've realized there's a third possibility. What if they pulled that from the marketing review? Because in fact, they're going to change direction. And whatever they planned previously for Stargate is no longer relevant. So before I tell you about the other person I've spoken to, let's just discuss why things might have changed. One, the strikes. They have changed a lot about what is going on in Hollywood right now. They have made all of the executives stop and think. It's given the management the opportunity to stop and think, which means they've had time to reconsider things. Never a good idea for a manager to have that opportunity, in my experience of work. But that is one thing. Also, the negotiations mean that the financial situation in the next 18 months to 5 years is going to have changed. How much studios are going to be paying out because of the new contract is going to have changed. Plans that they had regarding things like AI are going to have changed because of the new contract and the new agreements. There are lots of things that are going to mean the studios have to have a stop and a rethink. Now, Amazon do have a long-term plan that I don't think will be massively affected by a lot of what is going on with the strikes. And the other thing that's changed is basically the fans have been shouting very loudly that we don't want a movie. This opportunity for the studios to stop and think has also given them an opportunity to stop and look. They can see channels like Scitrek and the Popcast Brothers and Gateworld and so on, all shouting out very loudly, we don't want a movie. Everybody that's done a poll of Stargate fans say they don't want a movie. 90% of people that when we did this and we had this conversation, which do you want? Do you want a movie or a series? 90% of people said we want a series. The other thing is, though, the world of cinema has changed. Big franchises don't seem to be doing very well. And this year has really been a bit of a shock to some of the big studios. Indiana Jones was never expected to lose that much money. And it wasn't because the film was bad, because as soon as it went on streaming, it did very well. Mission Impossible. That did not do well at the cinema. I know Barbie and Oppenheimer came out immediately afterwards and sort of decimated it. But the truth is as well, all of the Marvel movies have not been doing very well. All the DC movies have not been doing very well. And it has made the studio stop and think. Franchises might not be for the cinema anymore. Or at very least, it's made them stop and think about what they are going to spend big money on pushing towards the cinema. So that might be one other reason why we're going to get a series instead of a movie now, because of the change in face of the cinema. So, after speaking to Jenny, I got in touch with somebody else that I know that works over at MGM. They are more to do with sort of legal side of the business, so they get to see certain things. I haven't spoken to this person for a couple of months because with the strikes and everything, there's been no reason to. But they got in touch with me back this morning and we've had a nice long chat. One of the things they've been able to confirm to me is actually that Penguin and Parker are still involved with the conversations regarding Stargate. And to me, that is a big relief. It's again something that me and Jenny spoke about last night. I personally haven't heard anything concrete about Penguin and Parker, Mark Fergus and Hawk Osby, the guys that did The Expanse, since basically last December. I knew they had a contract to do development. They were negotiating a contract to move that to the next step and start doing scripts, etc. There was lots of conversations about whether it was going to be a movie, a series, blah, blah, blah. And those contract negotiations ended just before Christmas. Quite friendly, but with some frustration on both parts, so they hadn't been able to sort of get an agreement. Mark Fergus apparently was quite frustrated, actually, that there was no decision from Amazon at the time about whether it was going to be a movie or a series, and there was a few budgetary things as well. Now, Jenny Stiven said she'd actually heard that Penguin and Parker was still renegotiating that development contract much later in the year. She was not 100% certain, but, sort of March, April sort of time. So the source has been able to confirm to me that while a lot of these contracts are being renegotiated and actually signed right now because the writers can sign them again, Penguin and Parker is negotiating with Amazon, and that is for a Stargate-related project. That they're currently finalising that contract and doing all the small print, and that this source expects that to be done and dusted within the next few weeks. Talking to this source, though, today, he basically confirmed a lot of what we've been talking about. Yes, Amazon has been renegotiating lots of things. They have cancelled lots of projects that they were talking about and they were planning. They have cancelled several contracts to buy certain scripts that they were planning to buy 18 months ago that they are no longer going to be moving forwards with. The source says that they've been looking at no more studio space contracts, etc., and they're looking very firmly at going a lot of this alone, that they are looking at a lot of contracts abroad for studio space. One of the things we talked about was that we believed Stargate was going to be filmed in Poland. And he has said, yes, there is studio space that Amazon are renting out in Poland right now. So that is a possibility. I asked him about whether it's true, possibly, actually, that Stargate project movie had gone to the point of maybe building sets. He said it wouldn't surprise him. He doesn't know for certain himself, but it wouldn't surprise him in the slightest because he is aware of at least 8 other projects that had got to the point of early development, i.e., building sets, starting to actually do some of the early CGI stuff, etc., that Amazon had now cancelled. He was actually able to tell me that one of those projects was quite a big project and they'd already spent $8 million on development and they just scrapped. So I asked him, is it possible that Amazon are changing tact and that they will just move everything from the movie to the series that actually they spent nearly a year on development work before? And he said it's not only possible, it's very likely. He's basically said that everything that he is seeing at the moment is pointing to the fact that Amazon are getting ready to get back to work. And they are more than willing to change their minds if they think there's a good reason to. So, okay, this is quite a long video summarizing a lot of different points. But the overall point is, MGM insiders are telling us this is possible. A lot of the meetings and things that we know happened, even if we don't necessarily know the results, seem to be pointing towards this possibility. We know that it's what Stargate fans want. We know it's what all of the metadata that we've generated as YouTubers points to. Finally, I know for a fact that the head of MGM Plus, Michael Wright, has been screaming and fighting and scrapping to get Stargate over on MGM Plus from day one. And it seems that he might possibly have won the argument. But guys, what do you think? Get into the comments and tell me. If this is true and they do change tact, I actually think we'll get something on our screens about the same time we would have got a movie anyway. It'll be 12 to 18 months. So really, it won't make any difference except for the fact that we'll get a series, 10 hours at least of streaming, rather than a 2-hour movie. Is that exciting? Would that be better? It would give them a lot more time to world build and get everything straight from 15-year gap. And to be honest, it's just what we want, isn't it? Get into the comments, though, and tell me what you think. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out, and you'll never miss any of our new videos as we talk about Stargate all the time. Also, you can go to patreon.com/Scitrek, where you get to see most of our new videos first. And finally, you can go to scitrek.co.uk, which is our dedicated website where we write articles based on most of our videos, and we try to add a little bit more detail for you to digest. Please go check it out. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.